apologize that I have to slip off
Okay.
at 3 o'clock.
So we'll learn.
But I will.
Okay, we're
do my
learning.
best to speak
We're learning
first.
now. Tanya Pedic Ayin Gim Pedic Nun Beis, chapter 52. We're on page 83, 73, but in Hebrew Ayin Gimel. It's across 144, and we're reconciling here how the Shekhinah, how God's presence is all over. And at the same time, the statement by the sages is that it finds itself specifically in the Holy of Holies in the Holy Temple. So the Alter Rebbe is explaining that it depends what aspect of God you're talking about. The essence of God is all over. God's manifestation is in various different places and manifests in different ways. So I'll go to the second word on the top line on that page, Ayin Gimel. Avol HaShechina Atzma, the Shechina itself, Shehi Reishis HaGilui V'ikroi, which is the primary revelation and the primary and first revelation, Mashain Zev Baruch Hu, Meir Lo'olam Ois, the fact that the infinite God illuminates all the worlds with B'chinas Gilui in a revealed way, V'hi Makar Kol HaMshachas HaChayish B'chol HaOlam Ois, and it is the source of all energy in all worlds. Shekol Achayish Behem, for all energy within the worlds, Ein Rak is just but Oira Mispashet Bimenu, an extension of God's light. Ke'oira Mispashet Mashemesh. It's not it's comparable, he says, to the light of the sun. Is the light of the sun itself? No. It's an emanation, a reflection of the sun, and it's that part of the reflection that allows itself to be seen in the world. So it's impossible for the worlds to be able to tolerate and to receive the light of the Shechina, the light of the Shechina, that it should actually dwell and invest itself in the worlds, without a garment that will conceal the powerful light. And it will conceal its light, so it doesn't become naught in reality. In its source, kibitul, and this would be compared to the Eira Shemesh, to the light of the sun, in its source. Take, for example, the sun that we have coming to us. Now, think about the sun that we have. Think about it as it exists in the source. The Guf HaShemesh, in the fireball, in the sun itself. This light, this reflection is not at all seen there. It's the fireball itself, the sun itself. So the only way that you're able to have it is through a garment. Now the Alter Rebbe asks a question. If you're telling me this, that it's the garment, how is it that the garment that the ray of this of Hashem is not consumed by the garment if the garment is so powerful? So that's what he explains now. What type of garment, spiritual garment, can conceal the intense light to the point where the existence won't become naught? He answers, this is God's will and wisdom, which is invested in the Torah. That's God's will and mitzvahs. That's revealed to us. The Torah is associated with wisdom. This is the supernal wisdom, the Leila, which is above. Me'alma, the Isgalia, from the world of revelation. And there we call God, as we said earlier in Tanya in chapter 2, the Iyu Hakim. God has the virtue, Moshe, of wisdom. But you cannot say that I know God through wisdom. And what if someone, Moshe, is not a wise man, and he's an emotional man, and he relates to God? He can't have a godly experience? Sure he can. So that's why we say, Iyu Hakim, Avram, God possesses the virtue of Chokmah, but he is not known through Chokhmah. You cannot limit God to Chokhmah, to wisdom. You could say that whatever virtue there is in wisdom, he has that as well. And whatever virtue there is in understanding, he has that as well. Whatever virtue there is in emotions, he has that as well. But to pinpoint and to limit God to wisdom or to emotions and all that is a limitation on God. That's what he says here. As we explained earlier, that the infinite God, infinite light of God, is invested and united with supernal wisdom. For who he is Hashem, God, and his wisdom are one. However, it descended many levels, from level to level, through the descent of all the worlds, until a minute amount of energy of godliness is found in the physical world, in the 613 mitzvahs. We're in the middle of the page of Ayin Gimel now, towards the last part of the page after the period. And as the energy of Hashem descends from level to level, Gam Shechina Yorda, so too does the Shechina. So now we're talking here about, guys, we're talking about God's essence in Torah and then the Shechina. And he says, the Torah within each world, as it goes from world to world, is divested, and so it makes also a difference in the Shechina. That's what he says. The Shechina also descends in each world. The Zel we call Heichel Koche Kochim, the chamber of Holy of Holies, Shebechol Olam V'Olam. And he says, the Zohar says this, as it says in Zohar, Ve'etz Chaim, in the book of Kabbalah, known as Eitz Chaim, Sha'ashchina She'im Malchus Datzchilus, Shechina, which is Malchus, the 10th sphere of Atzilus, skip the brackets, He mislabeshes behechel kochim debria. It invests itself in a lower chamber, in the chamber called the Holy of Holies of Bria, Shehi, Chabad de Bria. That means the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge of Bria. I'll explain soon. Uvislapshusam b'malchus de Bria. And when it invests itself in Malchus de Bria, Nivru, it not only relates to the Torah in that world, it creates actually neshama, souls, v'malachim, and angels, Sheba Bria, in the world of Bria. Please turn to page 146, top of the page. V'gam misham nimshach haTalmud shelafanenu. The Talmud that we have, right? We talk about learning the Talmud, the Gemara. The Talmud is made possible through the world of Bria. You see, everything has a spiritual counterpart. We take a book and we say, this is the Talmud, right? Right? Mark, we take a book, this is the Talmud, this is the Torah. That's true. But where does this Torah and this Talmud begin? And that's what we're learning here in this section of Tanya today, that it has a counterpart. And it begins in the spiritual realms. In which spiritual realm? Depends. So the world of Bria, which is the closest world to the world of Atzilut, which is the world of emanation, the world of godliness, godliness rubs off on it. So if godliness rubs off, how is it that there could be obscurities that are presented in the Talmud? Right? In the Talmud, Rabbi Mark says this, and Rabbi Velvel says this, and Rabbi He says this, and there's differences, and one refutes the other, and they're going back and forth. This is all part of the Talmud's way of study. And the answer is, because Bria, the world of creation, is such an experience where the godliness, i.e. the clarity of God, is obscured. That's the difference between the world of Atzilus and the world of Bria. The clarity is obscured. Once clarity is obscured, Avram, You can have you arguing with me and I with you and he with he, and we have all kinds of different arguments. In the world of Atzilus, Chaim Zev, there's no arguments. It says there, there's a verse in Tanakh, it says, Lo yigur chara, no evil dwells there. So Chassidus says that verse is a reference to Atzilus. The whole concept of bad, evil, obscurity, concealment doesn't exist there. Atzilus from the word etzel, near, close. Close to what? To the Godhead. Yes, Moshe.
Yeah, Rabbi Dalfin, so if we say that in Bria, God is already obscured, you're saying that Atzilus, he's not.
Correct.
But my question is, well, what about, how do we relate to the world of Yetzirah and then lower than that, Asiyah?
Right, okay. Okay, good question. The obscurity in Bria is the fact that it isn't Atzilus. In other words, there is purity, a pure person. Then there is a person, in English it doesn't sound good, who's not pure, meaning not that he's a shyster, but he doesn't have that purity of Atzilus. That very doesn't have the purity of Atzilus. That itself is already impure. You see? So that's Bria, Moshe. That's Bria. Why? Because Bria says, let me start with an idea. The idea is called a world. A physical yesh mi'ayin is in Bria. Yesh mi'ayin is not in Atzilus, because Atzilus is considered ayin compared to Bria. Ayin means nothingness. Nothingness meaning only God. No material. I'm talking about spiritually. No concept of materiality. It took Malchus, the Sphira, the 10th Sphira of in Atzilus to say, I smell that there's something good about creating a world. Would you give me an opening? So Bria is the opening. The opening. Yetzirah, Moshe, is already a form. And I think in your work you should be able to relate to this. You know, there's the creation of an idea in your head. Before you sit down, right? Then you start with a general draft. I mean, I could just talk about my work and writing. That's the way I do it. I have an idea. This is what I want to write about, this idea. Then I sit down and I make a general outline. That would be Bria. Then, the outline includes chapters. I'm just saying the way it works for me. Then I start just writing things that I'm thinking about as I put right? So that's already Yetzirah. I start forming the form. And finally, it's not finished. It's far from finished. You have to have Asiyah. Asiyah is where you refine it and you edit it and you cut and paste. So spiritually, it works this way as well. There is the way Hashem is in the reality of Atzilus, where it's only Hashem, only God. Then there is that it's not only God, yet it hasn't yet been formed. That's Bria. The fact that it's not only God, that itself means it's one step away from God. There's now an opening for something non-godly compared to godliness to exist. But I don't know what it is yet. Right? It's just a impotentia. And then we have Yetzirah, the third world, which is in a formation, and Asiyah, action. But going back to what we're learning here, it was the Alter Rebbe saying here that the Talmud that we have, the fact that there is this kind of argumentations back and forth and everything the Talmud begins, its seat is Bria, because as soon as you say it's not God, that itself is the opening for difference of opinions and disagreements and everything else. We're going on to the second line on 146. As we learned earlier, the name of the Tikkunim Zohar, שבעולם הבריאה מאיריס ומשפיעס שם חוכמוסי ובינוסי ודייתא של אין סוף ברוך הוא. That in the world of Bria there shines and there's an influence from God's Chochmah, Bina, and Das of the infinite God. But in what way? B'bchinas tzimtzum matzum, through a mighty contraction. You cannot have a Bria creation if there is no tzimtzum. Why? Because God's infinity is too powerful. Again, the mashal that I gave several times, the teacher is a genius. He comes into the room to teach. If he doesn't contract his information, he's not teaching students. He's talking to himself. He gets paid. He needs to go into a pay room, to a room, or he needs a sounding board. But he hasn't descended and removed his great knowledge and contracted, better said, his great knowledge to be able to make the students understand from where they're coming from. So that's what he says here, that in order for the world of Bria to emerge, there needed to be tzimtzum matzum. Back into the text. B'chdei sheyuchlu hanashamas v'malachim, for the purpose so that the souls and the angels, shebali gvul v'tachlis, which are limited, they should be able to kabel or ashpa, to receive the influence from God. B'pchinas Chabad elu, from this Chabad. V'lochein nimshich misham Talmud. That's why from there comes the Talmud. Shugam kim b'chinas Chabad, which is also Chabad. Shal Talmud hu taimi halachos. Right? There is the Mishnah. The 6 volumes of the Mishnah sit right. It's very, very brief. The reasoning is not given in the Mishnah. If you open up a Gemara, a Talmud, which has the Mishnah and the Talmud, you'll see always the Talmud says, we learned in the Mishnah this and this. Why? Who says it? And if there's 2 opinions, why doesn't one say like the other? It's typical of any piece of Talmud. Why is that? Because the Mishnah itself is brevity. It just says, Rabbi Chaim Zev says this, and Rabbi Yisr says this. Doesn't tell you why he says this and why he says that. And why he doesn't accept this opinion and why he doesn't accept that opinion. So the Alter Rebbe is saying here that the Talmud is what we call taimei halachos. The reason for the halacha. The reason for the law, right? So it says, Moshe Drucker, it says that, okay, you should put tefillin square boxes on your head between your eyes. Well, if you're basing that on a verse in the Torah it says it should be between your eyes. Where is in between the eyes? Here or here? Here. Here are my eyes, and here's in between the eyes. And the Talmud asks that question, and the Talmud says, wrong, you don't put it here, you put it on your forehead, up here. And you know the Sadducees, they were heretics, and they didn't accept oral law by the rabbis, and they would put on tefillin. And I think I told you a long time ago, I went into their synagogue in the old city in Jerusalem. It's still there, I assume. And I got someone who let me in, and I saw what they say is a few thousand years old. I don't know, but that's a shul from the Tzedukkim, from that are heretics. And they took everything literal in the Torah. So the Torah says, put the tefillin on, put those on between your eyes. They put boxes in between their eyes. And it says, don't light a fire on Shabbos. No light. Sit in the dark. Came along the Talmud, and the Talmud opened up and said, you don't understand what the verse is saying, and I'll prove it to you. And the Talmud brings proofs what Beinei Necha, which is the verse in the Torah, between your eyes, really means. It doesn't mean it means by your forehead, centered between your eyes, but not down here. And how we come to that, you have to open the Talmud and Tractate Menachos, and you'll see the discussion. It's a discussion. And the same is true with many pieces with Talmud. Talmud is the reasoning of halacha. the clarification of Jewish law. Okay? So the Alter Rebbe says here, let's look back in the text. From there comes the Talmud. Because the Talmud is demonstrative of using the Chochmah Biradas, your intellectual components, in understanding and the reason, Taimei Halachos, the reason for laws. Al Buryan, not just understanding it. Buryan means very well. V'hataimim ibchinas Chabad, the Taimim is Chabad. V'halachas atzmon heimim midosav shalei yitzav baruch hu. Now, we have the reason, right? The Taimei Halachas, the reason for Jewish law. What about law itself? Law itself, he says, is an expression of the midos, of the emotions. Meaning, do this and don't do that. And he explains why. Shehein chesed din rachamim. We have three notions. Kindness, chesed, kindness, benevolence. Din, judgment, severity, punishment, all that. And then we have rachamim, mercy, compassion. So, all of Torah, all halacha fits into one of these categories. Either it's an expression of judgment, or expression of kindness, or expression of mercy. So, for example, don't take, right, the Torah says, don't take the mother bird from the child, right? Shalach to shalach ha'se'im, right, there's a mitzvah. It's a difficult mitzvah to do, but actually I did it in Tel Aviv. In my daughter's building, there was a nest, and I was able to take away the egg and be Makayim the mitzvah. Here in Brooklyn, it's very hard to find that, and they have people in shuls putting up, if you want to do the mitzvah, call this and this number. You'll see that once in a while. But in Eretz Yisrael, it seems like it's easier, right? What's the purpose of the mitzvahs? There's many. The basic idea is Rahmanas, have mercy. The mother bird shouldn't feel the pain of the son of the child being taken away from her. So that's a mitzvah that rings of mercy, compassion, tzedakah. Torah says, don't close your hand on someone who needs and asks for tzedakah. Why? Compassion. And there's other mitzvahs, which are mitzvahs that are oriented towards chesed, kindness, and other mitzvahs towards gevura. So that's what the Alter Rebbe is saying here. That the halachas themselves are associated with the midos, with the emotions, with the character. And he says, Shebehei nimshach. That's why from that comes about haheter, what's permissible, v'hisser, what's forbidden, ha'kosher, what's kosher, v'apostle, what's not kosher, v'achiv, what you're obligated, v'apoter, what you're exempt from, koshkosher b'tikunim. U'vislapshus malchus datzilas b'malchus debriya. Now when malchus of the highest world invests itself in the malchus of the next world of bria, mislabeshes behechel kochim kochim di yitzira, that's when it makes it possible for it to emerge and invest itself in what we call the Holy of Holies of Yitzira, Shehu, which is a reference to Chabad of Yitzira, Uvislapshusam b'malchus di Yitzira, and once the energy has gone from Malchus Datzilos to Malchus de Bria, then Noitzrei Haruchais was created in the world of Yitzira, which you asked about, Moshe, are the spirits, V'amalochim, and the angels, Shebi Yitzira. So basically, angels and spiritual realities are all associated with Yitzira. The Gam Mishom hi HaMishnah Shelefanenu. Actually, I take that back what I said earlier. He says here, if I understand it correctly, that's where the Mishnah is, the spiritual counterpart of the Mishnah is there. She Hilchos Psukis, which are definitive laws. Hanim Shochis Gam Ke Mechabad She'insav Baruch Hu, that draws itself and comes from the infinity of God. Rak Shepchinas Chabad She'im Taimei Halachos The only difference is that the level of Chabad, which is the reasoning for laws, Heim Lubashim, the Genuzim, they're invested and hidden, Begufei Halachas in the laws themselves. V'loi Bebchinas Gilui Begufei Gilui, and they're not revealed. And then you have Begufei Halachas, the actual laws, not the reason, but the actual laws, Sheheim Bebchinas Gilui, which are revealed, Hein. They are Ha'oris Midosev Shalom. So Baruch said earlier, they're a reflection, an emanation of God's midos, his emotions, his character. B'chinas Gilui, in a revealed way, which causes b'shem etikunim, as we say in the name of Tikunim, the siach, the shit sfirim, 6 spheros, mekanana, they rest biyitzira. That's what it says in the Zohar. We say it on Friday night in Pasach Eliyahu before Ashrei, Friday night in the service. Shein derech klal shnei kavim, Yamin Ismail, which generally refers to 2 orientations, the right and the left, which is lahoke besitra de chesed, the right being to be lenient from the side of kindness, the hainu lahatir, which also is the reason for permitting things, sheyuchol lalos el Hashem, that so because the energy is able to ascend to God, or the opposite, lahachmir, to be stringent and strict. V'akol api chokmas ilod atzilus ubino das klulubo. And all of this is based on the supernal wisdom of God, as expressed in Atzilus, and bina das is also included there. Umichodesh beisav baruch hu. So it will stop right here, just because this will end tomorrow. But what we're learning here, and it's only a drop of what the what's going on here, because it's a very, very loaded chapter, as I told you from the beginning. But what the Alter Rebbe is saying here is that the idea of the Shechina being in the Kochi Kochim, the Holy of Holies, is not only a reference to the Shechina being in the Holy Temple over there today, by the Kotel Kaisel Maravi, on the over there where they have their mosque. That's a physical thing. But spiritually, there's a concept of Kochi Kochim. What's Kochi Kochim? Kochi Kochim is Torah. So there is the way Hashem invests himself in the Torah. There's the way Hashem invests himself in Shechina. And what we're saying is that the Shechina is the manifestation of Hashem investing himself in Torah. So that it's true, and there's no contradiction between God filling the entire world, Molech Chol Ha'aretz Kevoidoi, and Hashem being, as Chazal say, the rabbis say, Hashem being in the Kochi Kochim, because of course God's all over. God's essence is all over, no question about it. There isn't a place where Hashem isn't. But nevertheless, the way that manifests itself is in Kochi Kochim. And this explains another general idea. Why is it important, let's say, to go to the Kaisel Maravi, when possible, at least 3 times a year, whatever? Why can't I pray at my house? Well, God doesn't hear me. Of course Hashem hears you. Hashem hears a prayer anywhere and any time. The doors are always open. Nevertheless, there is the antennas, and there is static. So certain places, there's less static, there's more antennas, and there's more clarity. And that's the whole idea. Lubavitcher Hasidim and others, go to a tzaddik's cave, or the Rebbe's cave, or other tzaddikim's kvarim, right? What's the whole idea? What do I have to go to a cave? I could daven here at my wall. The answer is that where it's a place where a holy person is buried, there's less static there. So you're asking that tzaddik to intercede on your behalf, and because you know that this person led a life of holiness, to bring your requests to Hashem. Right? That's the idea of going to whether it be a caver, a holy grave site, or going to the kosel, or going to where the patriarchs, the matriarchs are buried, the Marsa Machpelah, or anywhere else. So I think it's important to know both sides of the coin. A person can't get to a tzaddik's caver, okay? They need to know that if you pray with, you're genuine and you really mean it, you can connect from wherever you are. At the same time, a person should make an effort, to get to a place of koche. And the same is true for a synagogue, a shul, and the same is true for a study hall, right? You could learn anywhere. Why do you can learn here at my dining room table. What do I have to go to a shul to learn? Because there's some holy energy that envelops a shul, okay? The Rebbe always said, I remember hearing this in the Rebbe hundreds, maybe thousands of times. He said about 770, this is the place where my father-in-law, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, his father-in-law, prayed and learned for 10 years. He came in 1940 and he passed away in 1950. And therefore, this synagogue is imbued with his holiness. I heard that from him many times. So there's extra value to pray and learn in such a place if you identify with it. If you don't identify, then it's meaningless for you. The Kochim, the Holy of Holies, listen, the average person didn't get into the Kochim. I don't think anyone here is a Kohen, right? Only a Kohen went into the Kochim, the Holy of Holies, once a year. So what connection do I have to Kochim? And yet the rabbis, the sages, make a big deal about the Holy of Holies. Yom Kippur. Look at the Yom Kippur service. Talks about Kochim. Look at this chapter in Tanya. Kochim, Bria, Kochim, Matzilis, Kochim. So in other words, that even though we are not Kohanim and we still are told to relate to it. So I'm saying in the same way, even if a person can't get to the Baal Shem Tov's caver over there in Mezhebush, Ukraine, wherever it is today, or this tzaddik or that tzaddik, if you identify, that itself is already a connection. Let's say up there, up the road from Ramot, or whatever, not Ramot, over there from Meir Sharim, you got Shmuel Hanavi's caver. You know what that means? Samuel the prophet's caver. You're talking about a prophet. Thousands of years ago, we open up and we learn, we read. And after about Shmuel Hanavi. And just 10, 15 minutes up the road, you could be right there. Again, if you believe he's there. If you believe they've identified the right place. So if a person can get there, and I know someone from Russia actually who made Aliyah, and he goes every single week he tries to take people to Shmuel Hanavi. He's found solace in Shmuel Hanavi's place. Then what about Shimon HaTzadik, right across Meir Sharim, what they call East Jerusalem, right? Where there's been skirmishes and all that. Literally, to walk from Meir Sharim to there is 10 minutes walk. You're right there. As long as it's safe, whatever. And right? You're talking about a sage of 2,000 years ago is lying in your background. So now people here in America, and we don't have that, or even in Bet Shemesh, you guys got to take a car or a bus or a train, whatever, to get there. But the point is that whether we could get there or not, it should be important to us. It's a kutchi. I think if we walk away from a piece of Tanya like this, which is loaded and very heavy and difficult, and we walk away with this concept, that itself is very, very soothing and important. And people like Moshe and Avram, who are drawing art and they draw about these places, this isn't just a picture. It's trying to show and inspire the person who will look at this picture, buy the picture, the art, it talks to you, and the artist puts their soul as though they're standing there, and probably a lot of some of the things that you guys draw, you've been there, so you have a sensation, a feeling when you draw it, because that's the best thing, as a writer as well. Those things that I've been able, I can say I was there. My writing of that is on a different level because I was there. If I wasn't there and I'm writing about it, and trust me, a lot of things I wasn't there, or I didn't meet the person who was there because they already passed on. It's different. So what happens here is that the Kochi Kochim creates a reality in the person writing about it, drawing about it, learning about it, talking about it. And that's one of the reasons for tours. Really, touring can be just a secular, mundane experience, or it can be a holy experience. When I took people on tours years ago when I was in Eretz Yisrael and I led tours of spiritual places, I just didn't take them to visit it. I would tell them who the person who was there, some of his teachings, how to kind of identify with the person who's there. It's not just, okay, it's a blue dome, we're driving up the road to Tzfat or to Tveria, and we see off the road Pekian. Have you guys been to Pekian? Right? There's the new Pekian HaChadash and Pekian HaYashan, the old Pekian and the new Pekian, right? When I went into Pekian, and I didn't even know about Pekian, but someone was going to take me up to Tzfas, and he knew about it. He says, let's make a detour. I thought I came back 3,000 years. 3,000 years, and I snooped around. I'm talking about now 20, 25 years ago, Allow yourself to be submerged by where you are, or you go to my daughters went to the Maharal, okay, in Prague. I think Moshe also told me he went to Prague. There is an opportunity for a soul experience, really, to live through a person like the Maharal, the Golem, or Velvel is out in Germany and in Cologne, and the Rebbe Rashab, he told me, was there, I think, one Yom Tov. We don't know exactly where, but these things aren't just, it's lahavdil, okay? I was in Poland one time, and I was driving back from where my mother was born and my grandmother, right outside of Warsaw, 20, 25 minutes. So I was looking for records. So someone says, in this place called Poltotsk, they keep records. So we made a detour over there. And as we're driving in, the driver says to me, look at the wall. And he takes me into the city center before we get to this city hall, or whatever it was. And on the wall it says, Napoleon was here. Napoleon stayed in that house. Now, Poland's a non-Jew, and but even that, that's, you understand? So when we talk about Kedusha, Kochim, it's not just, I'm going to the Kosel because, I need a bracha. And when you're standing at the Kosel, and you know that right above you was the temple service with great people, and they prayed and they sang to Hashem, wow. You have that opportunity. Okay, Chevre, we'll see everyone tomorrow. Have a great day. Take care. Shalom. Bye-bye.
Let's go.
Yes.
Shkoyach.
Bye-bye.
Oh, yes, bye.